Welcome to the Sway Pillow podcast. Today we have Dr. Somi, who is a dynamo thought leader, one of the brightest minds in women's health today. We're so lucky to have him on the podcast. And as part of the Leaps of Being the Sway Pillow community, as one of my personal advisors. So I'm going to do a proper introduction of Dr. Somi's background. I don't want you not record on anything because it's so oppressive. So Dr. Somi is the founder and CEO of Her MD, board certified OBGYN, entrepreneur, nationally recognized menopause sexual health expert, one of the leading voices helping women access evidence-based care and improve quality of life. Also an investor, speaker, women's health advocate. So Dr. Somi, how do you have time for it all and find the time to join our podcast today? Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I would honestly say I have the time because I have women like you who believe in the purpose and the mission. And I have a team of supporters and collaborators and fellow dreamers who believe that the status quo has never served women. And it's time to smash that status quo together. So I would say I have an amazing team of people in my life, both professionally and personally.
Amazing. I would say you're a pioneer because you did all of this work to give women access to resources and education and support way before it was cool. So really, it's a movement now, but you were doing this work so many years ago. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, they thought I was nuts, but I think that's when you really know when you're onto something is when people think you're crazy because it makes people uncomfortable because you're building something they've never seen before. I wish I could have told myself 10 years ago, that calming voice, that you're actually on the right path because of people's reactions. But my journey actually started a couple of decades ago, and I'll tell you the shorter version. But my mom nearly died when she was only 45, and I was only 21 years young. And I got a call from my dad, and I say it's the call that became my calling. And he said, Somi, you need to come home. And my mother, who was thin, non-smoking, Middle Eastern, had been complaining of left arm pain, shortness of breath, chest pain. Any of us put that into Google or any of our AIs now, and it's like, it's her heart. But her doctors, unfortunately, due to gender bias, lack of data, stigma, shame, whatever you want to call it, women being treated like little men, couldn't explain why a thin, non-smoking woman would ever present with four-vessel disease. She ended up coding on the cath table. We were robbed of time to hug her and say goodbye for surgery. And when I saw my mother getting wheeled out, she was blue and attached to all these tubes. And I'll never forget, I passed out cold because the surgeon came out and said, oh, she looks great. We're so lucky because the LAD or the main artery was 95% blocked. And if the heart attack would have come, she would have never survived. And she looks great. And so I'm anticipating seeing my mom pink and, just like, yes, with tubes. And she looked like a corpse. And I remember, passing out and then coming to. And her and I, during her recovery, I made a vow that this was not going to happen to another woman. So fast forward through medical school residency, got my first job, seeing 50 patients a day. I'm not going to the bathroom or eating lunch, let alone advocating for anyone. And so when life opened up, because I'm a mama of three, and when I had the time, I quit my job, bought a building, opened a practice where you could actually practice medicine and not have a conveyor belt of patients coming through. And we specialized in gynecology, sexual health, and menopause in the Midwest over a decade ago. So they thought I was nuts. But I did it for patients and providers because our system was so broken that I nearly lost my own mom.
It's the personal catalyst that really has to drive us, right? And going through what you did with your mom and imagining all of these families who don't have a positive result at that moment and lose someone who love. It's women have been suffering in silence. And when you and I talk like about menopause and sleep and the downstream negative impacts with its health by not being heard or being seen or getting the proper testing, it's really criminal, and we've had to live with it. But what if we didn't have to live, you know?
No, I mean, our system is literally killing us by dismissing our symptoms, by making us wait longer for pain medications, for a diagnosis. And frankly, we're more likely to die at the hands of a male cardiologist than we are a female cardiologist. And the flip side of that coin is we have these amazing female doctors with better outcomes, and they're leaving medicine by the age of 49 because we're not supporting them through their own life and work-life balance and allowing them to be moms or, dog moms or, travel, whatever fills their bucket. And so we have to heal our healers. And so we are not only ignoring our female patients, but we're also driving out some of our most excellent clinicians out of the healthcare system. So it's a duality of torture and malpractice and just, I want to use the word malfeasance, but it's just, it's criminal how badly the healthcare system is broken right now.
I say we don't have a healthcare system, we have a sick care system that by the time we are seeing, because it's so 911, was something very serious. If you back that up 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, on really getting to the root of these and have that prevention, and work on things way upstream the world we.
Yeah, we are not at all in this country about preventing disease. You are absolutely right. We are all about the third P in medicine, which is profitability. The other two Ps are patients and providers. And I guess it's a lot more profitable to chase disease than it is to prevent it. And if you look at some of our European countries that have really taken true wellness initiatives that are accessible to all of their citizens, they're much more about preventing disease, which then goes hand in hand with promoting longevity. And so I wish we would move to more of a system like that in the United States.
What do you think about?
For sure, for sure. You and I both have personal catalysts, right, as to why we started our companies and our journeys. But I would say, and you know this, that there are days as female founders where you just want to throw in the towel and you want to give up, and people only get to see the wins on social or on stages. But I would say it's not only the catalyst, but the days that I wanted to give up, the days that I wanted to cry. It was those patient stories. It was the promise I made to my younger self. It was the promise I made to my mother that kind of reminded me, even when it felt like all hope was lost, or I wasn't going to get this round done, or I wasn't going to get some, initiative launched. It was not only the catalyst, but it was the fuel that kept me going. Because people are like, how did you keep going for a decade in a startup? And I was like, my patience, my team, the mission, the promise. Yeah.
Hear you. So menopause and menopause care, because every single woman on the planet goes through that transition. Why do you think menopause symptoms historically have been kind of accepted rather than acknowledged and treated?
Yeah, it's a multitude of reasons. I call it vessels and vehicles. So women traditionally have been treated as vehicles for male pleasure and vessels for birthing. And we didn't think of women much beyond that. Women weren't included in clinical research trials or mandated to until 1993. So we were relying on a lot of male data to treat female symptoms. And obviously, men go through a hormonal shift as well with a drop in testosterone, but not nearly as significantly or as suddenly as women do in menopause. So I think lack of data, lack of education, a huge, ugly gender bias that exists in dismissal of female symptoms, and then even harmful medical terminology that exists. And then lack of funding and research in female and femtech, and so lack of solutions. And so when you combine all that and a profound lack of education with providers who didn't even know how to, other than how to diagnose, but how to treat. And, kind of, I grew up in the age where two things: WHI came out and said hormones were bad and caused cancer. And we all know that that data is misrepresented, blown way out of proportion, and actually hormones can be a wonderful thing. But I also grew up in a medical system that didn't train us on menopause and other than how to diagnose it. And we did not know the severity of ignoring menopause. Like, women can die. I used to hear, well, it's not going to kill her. It's just a hot flash. We now understand that it's head to toe and it increases our risk of Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease and osteoporotic fracture. And a woman has a 30% chance of dying in the first year after a hip fracture. And 50% of women who fracture their hips never get to pre-fall function. And so, yes, menopause can kill you. Um, you do have options. And so I think that's why it's been ignored and trivialized, in fact, not just ignored, but just completely blown off.
Dismissed. So what do you
Mhm.
think has changed the last couple of weeks to bring this more into the street conversation towards change?
I think what's really cool is I was telling you I have the optics of being in the exam room and also boardrooms and operating rooms, and the narrative is changing. So patients are much bolder, and this generation is not going to tolerate the uh, just being ignored any longer. Celebrities are speaking up and using their platforms, and I love that. We are seeing changes in Washington about policy on menopause education and insurance coverage. We are seeing more and more doctors where 10 years ago when I opened my practice, menopause and sexual health care rooms were empty, like the education rooms. They are now packed and oversold. And so I think that is what we have finally figured out. It's not one doctor, it's not one company, it's not one solution. It is all of us together: pharma, researchers, celebs, doctors, patients, investors, the check writers, everyone's saying no more. The system is literally killing women, and we need to disrupt it, and we need to do it together with all of our collective voices.
Amen. Um, really, well, you said it. It's synthesized it really well. And I think about you, and you were on the front lines. These conversations that are happening that, the world doesn't even know what's happening a year and 2 years down the midline, and you are in front of women suffering. You're in business conversations and pharma, and you kind of know what's coming down the freight line. So, what symptoms would women, as you're reaching aging, just, oh shit, I have to deal with this, I'm aging, versus there could be treatments available to help support this?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I hear is the hardest to diagnose is, I don't know what's wrong, Dr. Somi, but I just don't feel like myself. But then when you actually open up the space and time, they start telling you about their, bleeding or menstrual irregularities, their sleep disturbances, their hot flashes. They still love their partner, but they just have no sex drive anymore. Their sexual dreams are gone. They are starting to have sexual pain, vaginal dryness, even irritation with tight clothing. And so when you open up the room and the conversation and you start asking the right questions, it's amazing. They don't just have maybe the hot flash that they came to talk to you about. It's a multitude of symptoms, and they've kind of happened over a short amount of time. And most women, we just keep going, right? You keep going, you keep going, and keep going until you have like a catastrophic event that happens, and you're like, finally, like, I can't take it anymore. And so I think it's subtle changes that happen. Or sometimes it's a woman who just tells me, listen, I feel like I am going out of my mind. Everything I used to do for my mental health, my sleep, my workouts, it's no longer working. And something is wrong. But then a doctor will have checked all the labs and they're quote unquote in normal range. And so then they're told, it's fine. You're fine. Like this is normal aging, but yet it's not, because there's a difference between normal and optimal, right? Like I tell this to women, like there's a goal weight range for everybody that you have, in either in your head or by your height. And there's a goal, I mean, there's a range, but then there's optimal. And so I think just because it's normal doesn't mean it's optimal, and doesn't mean that you're living your quality of life to its best level. And that's where I want women. I want, like, life is such a gift. And I want women living it to its fullest potential in the bedroom, at work, at home, with their girlfriends. Life is short and it should be treated as the gift that it is. And I want to optimize the days that you have.
It's a beautiful thing to imagine that someone gets access to you. So most women don't have access to you until they see you now. You are out there, you're speaking more, thank God. You had your podcast, you work on a book, we can't wait. So the average woman in North America has to go to a primary care physician that isn't as dialed in. So what are the questions that women need to specifically ask or ask for when they go see their primary care physician?
Well, I would even tell them the work starts before you end up in the exam room. And so you either go to Menopause Society or you go to ISWISH, the International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health. That's a big mouthful. And you find providers who are trained in perimenopause, menopause, and sexual health, whatever your biggest concerns are. The homework also starts in deciding if, keeping track of your symptoms, because no one, including me, knows your body better than you do. So if something's off, it's off. Believe yourself. Don't doubt yourself. I let investors doubt me, and that was the biggest mistake I ever made. I assumed because they had fancy titles, they knew more than I did, and they didn't. And so don't do that with your body. You are the CEO of your own body. So find through one of those. I like both of those organizations because they're not for profit, and they are literally just trying to find you a provider who's trained in your zip code. So that's why I like it. It's not tied to a specific company. That's the first thing. The second thing is go armed, knowing your symptoms and what has changed and what you want to address. And then the third thing is you have to decide, am I trying to go insurance, or am I willing to pay for this? And the reason I say that is because a lot of the menopause, perimenopause specialists have decided not to take insurance, because insurance, this, my friend, still has not caught up with menopause, perimenopause care. They cover some of it. And if you go the insurance route, I'll tell you, I believe you should. I believe insurance should cover it, but it just may take a little bit longer. The waits might be a little bit longer, and you may have to break up the appointments into a couple of them versus having just one long appointment. It just really depends on the provider. So a little bit of homework beforehand will lead to a lot less frustration and less delays in diagnosis.
Okay, great advice. So you have to walk in with your notebook or notes on your phone on what you've been feeling, experience, document it all.
And Lara, you got to walk into the right room.
That's right. Yeah, find the room.
First step, walk into the right room. You walk into the wrong room, no matter how much work you've done, you're not going to end up with the outcome that you want and frankly deserve.
So great. So shifting gears to the work that we do here at Lucine and Sweat Pillow is around menopause health as it relates. Talked a lot about this, you and I. How important is sleep when it comes to, overall health, aging, wellness? How important is
Oh my gosh, it's so powerful. Sleep is literally when all of our repair mechanisms are going on. And so that's when we're repairing damage at the cellular level. So inflammation, cellular repair, that is when we are fixing all of those things. And so it is very, very damaging to our health in general and our mood, frankly, and our mental health if we are not getting adequate sleep. And so sleep is such a core pillar of overall health and longevity. that it's crucial. And so to blow off a woman who is telling you in menopause or perimenopause that she's not sleeping anymore is it's med malpractice. Honestly, like, you have to address the sleep, because not only is it going to negatively impact long-term health outcomes, but it's also negatively impacting her quality of life. Who's going to be productive at work when they're exhausted? Who's going to be a worse driver when they haven't slept, right? Lack of sleep impairs driving more than alcohol. We've seen it in studies. Frankly, who wants to be intimate or have sex when you are exhausted, particularly if you're chronically exhausted due to hormonal shifts that interfere with our sleep? And so that is why it is so important, the work that we're doing together and that you're doing and started. Sleep is so essential for women, and there's such this disruption that occurs in the perimenopause and menopause period. I would say it's almost abrupt. That is, I feel like, even though the hormones are doing this like zone of chaos and then they kind of do this cliff dive, I feel like the sleep, women come in and say, I was sleeping, and then all of a sudden I'm not. Or I'm waking up, 20 times during the night because I'm hot, I'm throwing off the covers, and I'm cold, and just not being able to get comfortable. Or because of genitourinary syndrome of menopause, they're now getting up every 2 hours to go to the bathroom. And so there are a lot of reasons in perimenopause and menopause that women are getting disrupted at night for their sleep patterns. And sleep and nutrition are, some of the first and second things we get into about lifestyle. And yeah, sleep disruption is usually always one of the first things that they notice. And sometimes they don't recognize that it's the hot flashes leading to the sleep disruption. Lara, I'm a menopause expert, and I don't know if I shared this story with you, but my own hot flashes, I didn't recognize. They came as what I thought were anxiety attacks during the middle of the night, because both my girls were away at camp. And so we weren't allowed to text or call. It was like written letters, or you would send an email, they'd print them out. So I wasn't able to hear their voice or text them for like weeks. And they were in northern Michigan. And I woke up like a couple nights panicked, and like my hair was soaked, and pacing. And I told my husband, I go, I think I'm having an anxiety attack. And he's like, did you go to bed anxious? And I was like, no. And then finally, by the third one, I was like, oh my God, these are my hot flashes that are waking me up. But then I'm getting so anxious from like waking up that then I would have the like racing heart. But isn't that funny that they do such a bad job teaching us about what, because the way they describe hot flash is a mild flushing that starts in your chest. I was like, that did not feel mild. That felt like a Mack truck in the middle of the night. But yeah, that's how my own presented. And I didn't recognize them in myself because I wasn't taught that.
So let's talk about sexual health and intimacy, which kind of blurs on the conversation of the men in the lives of menopausal women, and how they have to be patient, empathetic to the moods and all the stuff that we're going through, but also being such an important part of a healthy relationship. It is a big factor. There's major symptoms that play. What are the most common concerns that women bring to you?
So they feel like they're broken because most women, and frankly, most doctors, are not educated in women's sexual health beyond contraception, fertility, or helping someone get pregnant, or treating an STI. And so talking about desire, orgasm, arousal, satisfaction, lubrication, pain, other than in a surgical sense, like does she have endometriosis or fibroids, most patients will say to me, oh my God, a doctor has never even asked me these questions. Or they assume that they don't love their partner anymore, or they're confused, or they're not attracted to their partner anymore because they had a healthy sex drive or libido and now it's gone. And so once you arm women with names for the symptoms that they're experiencing, evidence-based treatment options, which there are, it changes the whole conversation. It changes the whole dynamic. But the most common things I see, especially in perimenopause and menopause, is complete loss of desire, which is the intent to want to engage in intimate acts. and sexual pain, or they'll start to say, oh my gosh, I'm having urinary tract infections like I did when I first started having sex, and I don't want to bother. Because who would want to be intimate if every time you do so, you're going to get a urinary tract infection? But once you explain to them that there are changes happening with the pH in the vagina, there are changes happening in the bladder and the urethra, and we can fix this with a couple dollars a month with a localized hormone, and you need to use lubricants and moisturizers, it's a game changer. I had a woman who wasn't having sex for months, and she had tried pelvic floor physical therapy and localized trigger point injections, and literally all she needed was some compounded hormonal cream externally and a localized vaginal product, and literally went from that to Nooners in 6 weeks. And it like changed their, and she like came in, and the reason I said that is those were her words. I go, how's it going? She goes, I can't believe I went through a year of all of these treatments that were expensive and invasive and painful, and all I needed was that $30 cream that you prescribed to a compounding pharmacy and a localized suppository. And I was like, yep. So to me, that's tragic, because I've seen relationships break up over this. I've seen divorces, and I have actually witnessed a woman in a room telling her spouse in front of me that he is allowed to go outside the marriage. They did not have an open marriage, because she's like, you deserve someone who wants you, and I don't want anyone. And I was like, what? Wait. And he was like, I don't want to do that. I want you. But she felt so broken. She told me that she was undeserving, and told him, I'm undeserving of him, and I'm undeserving of you. And I said, that doesn't mean you don't love him. That's called hypoactive sexual desire disorder, or HSDD. And what kills me is that I will go, and you said this, I speak. I will have 2,000 women in a room, and I will ask what Viagra is, or ED, or erectile dysfunction. Almost every single hand shoots up. I'll ask them what HSDD is, or what Addy or Vyleesi are, which are the 2 FDA-approved medications for low libido, and probably less than 5% of the room. The statistic is less than 1%, but it might have changed after the recent documentary. But probably less than 5% of the room raises their hands. We know about the solutions for the opposite sex, but we don't know about our own, because we haven't been taught. Less than 5% of providers know about these medications, and one of them has been on the market for 10 years. That's why you asked me why I do the policy work and the advocacy work and the pharmaceutical work, and why I go to the FDA, because I'm trying to even this astronomical gender gap that exists in sexual healthcare right now.
So there is a physical reason why we don't have desire anymore. It's not just we're tired. There is actually something going on in our body that now we don't have desire. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's called the biopsychosocial method, but a lot of times it's declining testosterone levels. It's changes in neurotransmitters, sometimes independently, sometimes due to those changes in hormones, estrogen and testosterone. Testosterone being a key player with sexual health, particularly for women. Equally so as to men. We just need smaller amounts, obviously. And so when you combine, and biopsychosocial means you look at the biology. So you're looking at the hormones, you're looking at what else is going on medically in that person's life. Psycho means you're looking at what is their attitude towards sex? What was it before? What is it now? So you're taking it in psychology, like what is going on with their mood. And then social. Are they dealing with aging parents? Are they stressed out about their children? Are they stressed out about their career? Are they in a bad relationship? So all of those factors combined can negatively impact libido, but particularly in this life phase, it is a change in hormones and a change in neurotransmitters. And so the evidence-based treatment options are, there's a nightly pill you can take called Addy, works on neurotransmitters. There's an on-demand shot called Vyleesi. These are both FDA approved, covered by your insurance. It can be prescribed by a healthcare provider. And then the third is testosterone, which maddeningly enough, despite a global consensus statement and a menopause society statement supporting the use of testosterone to help with sexual function with women, in the United States, we still do not have an FDA approved testosterone only treatment option. There's a great organization called the Testosterone Project that's trying to change this. It's a non-for-profit that is working on advocacy and trying to make it easier to access, because testosterone is a controlled substance. That should also make you mad, because we make it. And the fact that we don't have a product, when I believe there's like 12 products available for men out there right now that are covered by insurance and consumer available to a consumer. So I think to answer the question and come full circle, the most common complaints are low libido and sexual pain, which are easily treated. And then there are problems with also orgasm, arousal, satisfaction, lubrication. But there's evidence that testosterone and these other two medications help in those areas, along with localized or systemic hormone therapy. There's also femtech devices like audio erotica. Vibrators are actually, we're talking about them at medical conferences now and presenting data. That's why I don't like calling them toys. I like calling them tools. So I think there's a multitude of treatment options for women depending on what's going on. They just, I don't even say need permission. They just need to know what door to walk through, what provider to meet, and where to go, and have a provider who meets them where they are. I have some that say, I don't want medication yet. I don't want hormones yet, but can you just tell me about something else? I'm like, well, are you open to an app? Are you open to, a vibrator? Like, what feels comfortable for you? And then I'll tell you the data and how it can help you.
So well said. And it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. We've got our notebook. I'm not sleeping. I don't feel like myself. It hurts when I have sex. Oh, by the way, now I'm going to watch you. So we know our body, what we're dealing with. And there's solutions for all of these things. We have to ask for them.
Yes, you just have to ask for them. I wish one day in the future they'll just be offered and it'll be standard of care, right? You'll go in and people will ask you, just like they take your blood pressure and they take care of your vital signs. Like, I say sexual health care is a vital sign, because when a patient's sick, they're usually not having sex. And so healthy patients are usually the ones having sex. And so for me, it gives me another data point. And so I hope that it just gets incorporated as part of our visits, and that women don't have to ask for it. But right now, I'm telling you, ask for it, demand it,
Yeah.
expect it. Yes.
I'm straight. And the irony is, at this stage of our life, we don't have little kids running around into our rooms. We've kind of built our career. There's a little bit more downtime. We have the time, and by the way, the confidence to ask what we want intimately. We've got a bit more time on our hands that we can say, babe, this feels great. That doesn't. Don't stop doing that. And we should be having the best sex of our lives. So,
And
after
And I have witnessed that. There are women in this stage of their lives that are having the best sex of their lives, and you really hit the nail right on the head by saying it. No fear of young children, walking into the bedroom. If you're truly in menopause, I always have to say this statement: if you're truly in menopause, not perimenopause, not having to worry about contraception or undesired pregnancy at this point, you're right. Like, you've maybe reached where you want to in your career and you're not chasing as much anymore. You have more financial freedom, so you're not as stressed about that. And you know your body so much better than you did in your 20s, and maybe you know your partner better. So the data shows that women orgasm more quickly on our own than with a partner. That we orgasm more readily with a known partner, and it's for the exact reason that you're saying, than a one-night stand. So even the data supports that we are very different than our male counterparts when it comes to our sexuality. So there is a true orgasm gap, but it doesn't mean, without knowledge and insight, that it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It actually can be a very empowering thing, like you described.
what's the most underrated menopause symptom?
Itchy. Itchy. Like I had a friend call me over the weekend. She's like, I'm itching from head to toe. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Biggest menopause myth.
Yeah, hormones cause cancer.
Thank you, God. One thing every woman should know before the age of 40.
That menopause is coming for all of us. If we're lucky, I want the reframe to live long enough.
A health habit that you never skip.
Oh, sauna. I have red light with the infrared, so both infrared and then the red light therapy. I have a strong risk of cardiovascular disease because of my mother, and I've had high cholesterol since I was 18 and been on a statin. And when I saw the finished data, even though it was for men, and I've talked to some of the world's top cardiologists, and don't even get me started on preventative cardiology, right? Because we know that cardiovascular disease remains the number one killer of women. And when I saw the cardiovascular data and the reduced stroke data, for the last year now, I'm a sauna girl 3 to 4 times a week.
Best piece of advice you've ever received.
Build your own damn door. I couldn't find an opportunity. I couldn't find a job. I couldn't find a yes. And my father was like, if you can't find an open door, build your own damn door.
Okay, last question. What gives you hope about the future?
Oh God, I'm gonna get emotional about this one. I think even seeing the change that we have now with the menopause bestsellers and the documentaries, I didn't think this was gonna happen in my lifetime. 5 years ago, I had a TV producer telling me I couldn't say menopause on TV, and I'm about to shoot my second documentary in 2 weeks on menopause in New York. And so for me, the change that we've seen in the last couple of years gives me so much hope for what's going to happen in the future.
You know what? That almost makes me emotional because the work that you're doing, I just thank Moses and Jesus for you every day, for what you're putting out in the universe and me to get you in front of millions and millions more women. You changed my life and you're going to a positive impact on women's health for many generations to come. So Dr. Somi, thank you so much for being with us today.